When I was traveling, I used to just take my food and wrap it up, put it on the bottom, on the front of my car near the carburetor. I warmed it up. Yeah, that's also maybe you can argue that's not a classical way of cooking. Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva response. He says that if you take food and you warm it up on a radiator, it's also not a classical form of cooking. So when we're talking about something that deviates from the classical form of cooking, it could be the rabbis didn't forbid that. They didn't prohibit that. Is that clear? Okay, so let's look at that inside. Because again, when it comes to rabbinic prohibitions, we have the principle known as Hey Mamre, which means the same rabbis that said that this is forbidden also said this is permissible. When it comes to something that's written in the Torah says, we're not allowed to have pig, we're not allowed to mix milk and meat, it's black and white. When it comes to rabbinic things, it's about parameters. The rabbi said the following parameters are what we have to feel safe spiritually. But anything that's outside those parameters could be permissible, etc. There are those that say that foods that are cooked through steam are not subject to the problem of Bishul Akum because the steam is not reckoned, not considered to be like food like fire that cooks. There are those that differ from this and say especially a food that's cooked through roasting, tigun, frying. That's a classical form of cooking. Now I have to tell you a fascinating story. I was in New Hampshire about 2 months ago. There's a shliach there who has a kosher restaurant, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Beautiful town. I mean, I didn't really tour the whole thing, but it's a beautiful area there. I want to go back there in the summertime. It's right near the water, very, very picturesque, as if you will. So he bought a property. And he made a kosher cafe, beautiful thing. And there are not that many Yidden that come in the summer. A lot of tourists come by, and a lot of non-Jews come and eat there. It's very, very nice. He really, he and his wife really did a beautiful job. It's very beautiful. So he asked me to come in and to help him to look things over. So he had one challenge. This cafe basically they serve like bagels, and you can get a toasted bagel, you get a coffee, you can get some pastries, and they also have a fryer for French fries and for falafel. So he has a fryer in the back, a small fryer, very professional machine, etc. So he turns on the fryer in the morning, and he's not there all the time. He comes and goes. It's a Chabad house. He's asking me, well, what happens if the fire goes out? The fryer, if a non-Jew turns on the fire, and then you're going to cook French fries, there'll be a problem of Bishul Akum, potentially, and all that. Which was a challenge, and I said, I need some time to process this. I sat down on somewhere in the Chabad for 10 minutes just to figure out what I can advise him. And I said, and we both came up with this solution. He also thought of this, that he's only buying French fries with a Hamish Hashkacha, with a Hasidic Hechsher. Why? Because the ones with the Hasidic Hechsher are made Bishul Yisrael before you buy them. They're already half cooked. French fries are like half cooked when you buy them. They're just like you're finishing off the cooking process, the baking. Some of them need 20 minutes in the oven or 30 minutes. Some of them, the shoestring ones, may only need 7 minutes. But they are already partially cooked. So he said, you get the ones that already are cooked Bishul Yisrael, halfway. And then, according to this Jewish law, a non-Jew is allowed to finish off the cooking process because a Jew's involvement already had its stamp on it, already had its imprint. So now, what he does, he only buys the Bishul Yisrael French fries. He also turns on the fire, but he has a safety net. In case the fire goes out and a non-Jew lit the fire, the food's still kosher. He's not setting it up that way because that wouldn't be appropriate to set that up because it's too risky. But as a safety net, it was considered an adequate thing. And I was very gratified that I was able to help him. And also I was able to get a warm meal in the middle of New Hampshire. I mean, Hashem, I didn't turn it down. It was nice. Okay, now next halacha. Tav shalatzorch shipper. Oh, we did this already. No, we did this one last week. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going back. Okay. I guess I still have a hanger from last night's going. Okay. Yud Zion. Now I'm going to talk about all kinds of foods. This is fun stuff. Okay. So we said like this, that foods that are edible in their raw state don't have to be made Bishul Yisrael. For example, apples. They could be cooked by a non-Jew, technically speaking, and the same would be for carrots, tzimis. Because the carrots, if you want to be like a bunny rabbit, you can eat them raw. Not a problem in America. So It depends on the locale, the country that you live in. I had an older colleague who was from Europe. He told me in Europe nobody ate carrots raw. So in that country, they would have to be made Bishul Yisrael. But in America, it's not required. It's a little difficult to ascertain and to write things down in a sefer and to make a ruling because things do, it's a bit of a fluid and type of thing. It depends on the country we're talking about. He's going to mention a few kinds of foods that the poskim bring down and the types of foods that are written that are eaten today. So we have coffee and tea. The non-Jew cooks them. There's no problem with Bishul Akum for many reasons. First of all, coffee and tea are mostly water. Water is edible. You could drink it raw. So therefore it's not a problem for that reason. It does say in the Gemara in Shabbos that an Adam Choshev, a very, very exalted human being, exalted person, could be stringent about it. But for the masses, it's permissible. It's not a problem. Obviously, making sure that the coffee and the tea is kosher. Whether or not you can get a coffee at a random station, that's a separate question. What about the concern about Bishul Akum? These are questions. But in terms of the question of Bishul Akum, it's not a problem of Bishul Akum. So you also have to be careful if you're getting a coffee from the same dispenser that they have. Let's say they can have dairy cocoa, they can have sometimes even non-kosher soups or drinks coming through the same line, same spigot. That's an issue. Because you could have residue of food, or you could sometimes have hot absorption also. So the question about getting coffee on the go is a bit of a separate question. But since we're talking about it now, I'm going to just touch on it briefly by saying that, first of all, I don't drink coffee. That I've made that public statement in the past. Mm-hmm. I drink tea, but Pepsi is one of my big weaknesses. So if I'm on a long conscious trip and I'm tired, dangerous, stuff the rest on it. What can you do? No, plain Pepsi is the best drink on the planet. With ice, cold. I don't care if it's 0 degrees outside. In my car, there's nothing like it. I mean, it's just my opinion, but whatever it is. The cherry is like a distraction from it. I don't like it. It's like this artificial thing going again. I don't like it. Anyway, okay. But in all seriousness, you can get a plain black coffee from an urn that's just for black coffee. That's not a problem. So if you go to a hotel and you go to the lobby, they have these hot water urns and they have black coffee, and you can be sure that they're not mixing the black coffee and the flavored coffee because there'll be like a taste residue, there'll be a carryover, be like a cross-contamination concern. What's more of an issue, though, is when it comes to these machines that have like the K-cups, where you could have a machine that has K-cups for plain coffee, which are not a problem. They don't need a hechsher. Plain coffee does not need certification. They can also use that for flavored coffee, which does need certification, which sometimes could be dairy. And they can also use K-cups for like cocoa, which often has dairy in it. They'll have like a milk mix and one of the cocoa. It's running through the same spigot. So then you run into an issue of shared equipment and all that. That's an issue. Now, if you have an office setting where they have such a machine, so if it's a religious office and they're controlling what's coming in, and it's only par material, very good. You're lucky. Enjoy your coffee. But if it's an office that's used by many people, some of them don't keep kosher, and you have this kind of situation, you should discuss it with your Rav because it is potentially an issue. Yeah.
I have a slightly related question.
Go ahead.
I'm about to start basically clinic hours at work, at uni, at work, etc. And in the kitchen, instead of having like a conventional kettle where you just boil water and use it, it's got this like hot tap, sort of like it's just boiling water.
From the wall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it problematic at all to use that?
No, if it's built into the wall, it should also not be a problem. It's just for hot water. It's a little bit more mahudr, a little bit better to let the water run a bit before you use it, but it's permissible. And when I travel, I use hot water in a hotel. I buy those poisonous, those hot soups, those instant soups, once in a year when I travel. But I get hot soup. Hot water, it's okay. You can also go and get, that's not a problem. Yeah.
So, especially example in hotel rooms, but like every time I'm in that situation, I think, but I don't know if they put something else in there before, like maybe 5 years before they used to put dairy.
Okay, let me touch on what you're saying. When I say urn, I'm referring to the urn that's in the lobby and the actual kitchen of the hotel. What they have inside the rooms is a little bit different. I'm not saying you can't use it, but there they give you pods, I believe. I don't drink coffee, but as far as I see, they give you these pods, and some of them give you like a glass, right? Like a decanter or whatever it is. You can make stuff. If they just have like pods around, and I mean, technically somebody could put trafe inside there, but I don't see why they would want to, especially if the hotel has a non-kosher kitchen downstairs, like a restaurant, and they're serving food, and there's also a microwave. Why would they be incentivized to do that? No, I don't think halachically we have to be concerned about that for another reason, because not every hotel room is rented every night, and probably the keli was not a benyoimay, was not used in 24 hours. So to be so concerned about such a remote possibility, and it wasn't used for 24 hours, I would say to you as a rabbi, you're safe. It's okay. But if that machine is also used for flavored products or dairy, then you have a problem. I don't know that. You have to really verify that. So it's a little hard to know, but one way that you could see what they're offering in the room, in terms of what they're giving the guest. And if it's all plain, just regular coffee or decaffeinated coffee, it's not a problem really. And a lot of flavored coffee is kosher certified par. Just it's remotely possible a flavored coffee would be dairy. And even then, it's unlikely that the flavor component of the coffee would render the machine not kosher also, because it's a very minuscule amount. So I wouldn't be so worried if it's a flavor. But if there's actual cocoa or something like that, I'd be concerned about it because that has actual milk in it. I've been to plants that certified that. They mix milk powder or whatever it is, oil inside and all that. Okay, yeah.
Continuing flavor coffee, like the espresso machine, like it's like all like espresso coffee. It's like it's espresso but like notes of the flavor.
Right, because what the notes are coming from the bean itself, where they add the notes in the bean themselves are not a problem.
Okay.
Those are part. But when they add flavor, so when you look at a coffee bag, a lot of times they'll say it's got notes of things like I don't even know. They come up with all these things from the country where it's grown, how you sing to the coffee, whatever it is. I don't know. But that's natural stuff. That's part. But when they add flavor to it, then it obviously needs hashkacha because when a flavor can be manufactured from everything and anything. Okay, now we're going to take a deep dive into flavors. A flavor. I've been to many flavor houses. I was the one who certified one of the largest flavor houses in the world for many years, located in New Jersey. Called a flavor house. They manufacture flavors only, and flavors are very expensive, by the way. Just to put things in perspective, a flavor the size of a drum, which is like the size of this table, could easily sell for $5,000-$10,000. Like just the flavor itself. Sometimes an extract is one kind of flavor, but other flavors are an extract is a simpler type of flavor where you take, like, say, a solvent such as alcohol or some other kind of material, and you just soak a substance in it. Let's say I'm going to take vanilla bean. I'm going to soak in the alcohol. I'm going to create vanilla flavor, a vanilla extract. That's a simple type of flavor, but you can have some flavors that are more sophisticated, where they manufacture a flavor by using about 25 to 50 ingredients, various components, and they build it. And it often goes through many processes. It can go through a dry blend, it can go through a cold blend process, it can go through a spray dry process, it can go through roller drying, it can go through extrusion, extraction, and emulsion. There's like many different processes in the flavor industry. But flavors are complex. There are thousands of flavors out there. Now, you can, for example, I'll give you an example. Cherry flavor can be made from beaver gland, not kosher. Castoreum from beaver gland, not kosher. So when you have cherry flavor, it's called natural cherry flavor. That could be from a non-kosher, from animal source. A lot of times it's made artificially. It's made from synthetic source. It's not really from animal. It would be kosher. Civet is also from cats. It's not kosher as well. So they do make some flavors from these things. It's not so common, but it's possible. And that's why flavors all need hashkacha. But real cherry is too expensive. Maybe it's like waste, it's byproduct. I'm not sure why it's cheaper. And flavors often go through a hot process. I was in a flavor company once, and a lot of these machines. By the way, talking of a tour, I wouldn't be able to take it to such a place. They wouldn't allow it, but these places are fascinating beyond imagination. It's like Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory. So they have a room there where they have pressure cookers, right? And a pressure cooker gets very hot. So these are very huge tanks. The tanks are like the size of half this room. So they have these massive covers, like a dome cover that clamps down, and then they have these huge screws, like 10 of them around this dome to screw it down, so it's not going to burst under the pressure. And then they cook all kinds of things. So each one of these cookers are worth like $1 million each. So you have like 20 of them in the room. So when I walk in there, I feel wealthy. It's like an imagination, a manifestation. But it's fascinating stuff. And they have these machines called spray dryers, which take liquid product and turn them into powder. Spray dryers are also very expensive machines. They cost a few $1 million to build. They're like 5 stories high. They're towers. It's an interesting industry. Anyway, okay, back to our subject matter. We got a little bit. I took a detour all the way off to Long Island here. Okay, sugar Bishul Akum. Sugar is not a problem with Bishul Akum because sugar is really considered a condiment. It's there to enhance a food. Now, can we sit down at a meal and just have spoonfuls of sugar? You can do that. Not really considered whatever it's called societal norm, so to speak. Years ago, I had one of my relatives to eat salt. It could be, but not something you'd call not the norm. Therefore, it doesn't have to be Bishul Yisrael. Pitriot muvusholis elos al shulchan malachim. V'yesh lahem din Bishul Akum. Pitriot, I think, are mushrooms. No, I believe so. Some of them could be eaten raw, some not. So that gets into that discussion. If a mushroom is edible raw, there wouldn't be a problem of being Bishul Akum. If it's not edible raw, potentially would be. Cooked rice, oiras mevushal yesh beidin Bishul Akum, has a problem of Bishul Akum. Now we turn to the page Ayin Dalid. Sheikhar, which refers to drinks, ein beidin Bishul Akum. So when you buy a drink, most drinks, by the way, on the market today, let's say we're buying Snapple, the best stuff made on earth. If you get your favorite drink, I don't know, squeezer. Most of those drinks are what's known as hot fill. They're bottled and they're pasteurized in a hot process, and then they cool them afterwards. So they are cooked, but it's not a problem of Bishul Akum because the Gemara says it's brought down. A drink is something you just have on the go. In fact, every car today has a cup holder because on the go, you have to have your drink, right? You have your Pepsi, your Coke, or you have your coffee, whatever your fix. Everybody in America has to have their fix, right? So you have your coffee holder, or your drink holder. Therefore, a drink is considered to be not something that's specifically only had by a meal. Oh, I'm drinking by the meal. We're not so proper here in America. We drink on the go, right? We have our mugs, right? When people have their mugs, you have your water bottles. Okay. What about an egg? Any opera singers here? So those people, opera singers, would eat an egg raw, but that doesn't qualify, because most people in the world would not eat eggs raw, and therefore eggs have to be cooked before consumption, and therefore if a non-Jew cooks an egg, it would be subject to Bishul Akum. Vegetables that are edible raw, they don't have a problem with Bishul Akum. For example, gazer, which refers to carrots, the bunny rabbits, right? So if you want to eat carrots all day long, they're edible raw. Other kind of vegetables, for example, celery are also edible raw. Not a problem if it's cooked. Or cabbage, if it's edible raw, you eat cabbage in a salad, there wouldn't be a problem with Bishul Akum. What about dried cereals? Okay, the dried cereals, you go to the store, right? You buy yourself a box of dried cereals, fortified, all kinds of vitamins, and they cure all kinds of ailments. And they're one of the healthiest foods on the planet. It's over $10.99 per ounce. Those are not a problem. They're not a problem with Bishul Akum because they're not really considered to be a royal food. It's more of like, they convinced us it's a healthy breakfast. Convincing us, right? Probably if you would have like oatmeal or some other grains cooked, porridge, that's probably a healthier choice, but we live in a very fast-paced society. We want to be able to pour it into the bowl and pour milk in and not run out of the house hungry. Popcorn. Oh, popcorn. That's a big one. Popcorn is not Ela Shulchan Malachim. First of all, corn in America, it's not so simple to say that corn in America is kosher. Because when you go to a wedding or a fancy dinner, fancy event, not necessarily is corn served, because corn is the cheapest feedstock in America. So which means sweeteners are made from corn, the cheapest sweeteners, and it's also used as animal feed. In Eretz Yisrael, corn is kosher. In some countries it is, it depends on the country. But certainly popcorn in that form, which is just a snack food, right? Start eating it in top to top. At least I know that with me. And it's also popped. It's not even cooked in a regular way. So there's many reasons why it doesn't have to be Bishul Yisrael. And the next one is from the 4 basic food groups in the American diet. Thank you. Potato chips. No, I'm sorry. I spoke too quickly. Tapuchi Adam Tuganim refers to French fries. That has a problem with Bishul Akum. They have to be made Bishul Yisrael, as they touched on earlier. But what about potato chips? You take little slices of a potato and you deep fry them. Then you put a lot of salt on them. And then they become addictive, and then you sell them in a bag full of air, right? For $1, and then you open the bag and there's less than half the weight is inside it, right? Part of the marketing. So that's already a machlokes, whether or not they have to be Bishul Yisrael. I'm going to give you the parameters. I'll give you the tzdadim, then I'll tell you a story about that. One school of thought says, wait a second, the potato, it comes from a potato. A potato itself, if I were to take the potato, cut it in half, and then bake it, make a nice kosher, it's a kosher of food. It has to be Bishul Yisrael. So why shouldn't the potato chip, why should it be indifferent? It's coming from a potato. It originates from a potato. If it starts as a potato, it ends off as a potato. And it has to be Bishul Yisrael, according to that perspective. And there are some halachic authorities that maintain that. Another perspective is we're looking at the final product, not the origin. As a final product, a potato chip is not a kind of food that you would serve by a presidential state dinner or by a wedding. It's not a kosher food. It's a cheap food. It's a snack food. It would be considered insulting. And that's the reason to claim, well, therefore, it's not a problem with Bishul Akum because it's not a kosher of food. Therefore, what do we do in actuality? Well, so what the contemporary halachic authorities, many of them will advise people as follows. If you live in a place like Crown Heights, where you can get the Bishul Yisrael potato chips at Khan's or at Jimmy's or whatever one of these stores, all the local stores, many grocery stores to choose from. Then why should we be lenient and have the ones that are not Bishul Yisrael when I can get better? I can get, like the expression in Yiddish is, as good is good, is better not better. I can get better right in front of me, fine. But if I move away, far away to a community where I don't have Bishul Yisrael potato chips at my disposal, and potato chips are the 4 basic food groups of the American diet, and I must have them. That's my own addition. Don't pay attention to that. Then yeah, that's according to Jewish law, it's permissible. So you'll have people that live in far-flung communities. I'll take your question in a moment. That have potato chips that are not Bishul Yisrael. Now, what happens to? That's a general answer. Now, a story. Then I'll get to your question in a moment. So, about 10 years ago, so I used to I don't bring non-Bishul Yisrael potato chips into my house, but I live in Crown Heights. But when I would travel, like sometimes I go away for many hours. I'd be away from home and sometimes I get delayed. And if I ran out of food, I would sometimes have it because that was the way, it wouldn't be my first choice type of thing. But one Erev Rosh Hashanah, I made achlot that says that before Rosh Hashanah, you're supposed to take on a hiddur mitzvah, take on a little bit of an extra thing. So I did a hiddur mitzvah for my spiritual well-being by saying I'm only going to have Bishul Yisrael potato chips from now on. It's bli neder. And for my physical well-being also, because now I have less potato chips. So it was a win-win. Yes, your question. Good question. French fries are kind of like in between because French fries, first of all, they're more delicious when they're hot, and they're more served at a meal. You can eat French fries on the go also, but it's more likely to get a stomach ache. You sit down, have a thing of fries. Potato chips are just eaten on the go. So they are slightly different. Although you're right, French fries are not quite as royal as a baked potato with all the trimmings, but it's sort of more, it's more similar to that. So therefore, the poskim say, the authorities say we have to treat it in a more stringent fashion for that reason. But it's a good question. There is a school of thought that questions it, but the end result is that we're stringent about it. Is anybody hungry yet? Talking about French fries and potato chips, right? Not simple. Any other questions? Okay, but we have to talk about Pringles now. We're already, right? We're talking about it. What about Pringles? So now I'll tell you how Pringles are made. Pringles are made, for those of you who don't know, I work in the food industry. I'm in kashrus. So I've been to a few factories in the course of my kashrus experience, career, whatever you want to call it. So Pringles are made from dehydrated potatoes. They cook potatoes up, they dehydrate them and make them inedible. And then they rehydrate them. I mean, you think about this, like never eat Pringles if you knew this. Then you rehydrate them and then you shape them. That's how all Pringles look the same. How is it possible they stack up like a classroom of 50 very well behaved children? They're all looking exactly the same, like cookie cutter. Potato chips are all different. Each one's got a different twist and a different. But the Pringles are all looking so because they rehydrate them into a mold, and they're all so that's, and also Pringles are the bracha changes because they get rehydrated. They become a shahakol. So there's this concept known as panam chadashim. They become like a new entity. So to say that we're going to go after the origin, they come from a potato, therefore they have to be Bishul Yisrael. Well, the bracha changes. They became inedible. Now they become edible afterwards. So some people are more lenient with regards to Pringles for that reason. The bracha certainly is a shahakol. Again, some people are still stringent only to have Bishul Yisrael Pringles. I'm not saying that there's no room for that either. I'm just giving you the. I'm serving the smorgasbord, so to speak, of the different opinions. Yes.
I thought Pringles and do they have flour to them?
Very possible, but if they cook the flour, it still would be a question of Bishul Akum.
But would it not change the status of the
It depends on the functionality of the flour. The answer to your question is an excellent question. If the flour is going in there as a substance for what flour does, like to make a cookie, it would be mazonas if it's sweet. But if it's going in as a binder, just to bind all the ingredients together, to stick them together, then it's not going in a functionality that's considered chashav. It's the dabik biyalma, which halachically would make it a shahakol. So the question, we look at the functionality of the food. So we go deep into this.
Yeah, I brought their own thing.
What's that? Oh, we have Pringles, Baruch Hashem. What's the rice flour? What's the ingredients?
Rice flour and corn flour.
Yes.
Okay, so anyways, that wouldn't be wheat flour, but I guess they could use wheat flour potentially. Anyway, but these questions, by the way, it does depend on the country you live in. For example, in Mexico, I'm told, maybe some people may know firsthand, that tortillas are chashuv. I mean, that's like a chashuv in Mexican food. I'm not so sure if it's considered chashuv in America. More of a fast food. I'm not sure. It could be, but it's a little more questionable in America than it would be in Mexico. Which gets into another discussion, by the way, which is just to broaden our horizons. What happens if you have a food that, I'll give you an example. Let's say, I'm not saying this is true or not, but let's say in America, tortillas are not considered kosher. And don't have to be Bishul Yisrael. Let's say you have tortillas manufactured in Mexico, where they are kosher, they would have to be Bishul Yisrael, and they're manufactured for export to America. So are they allowed to be manufactured in Mexico, non-Bishul Yisrael, because they're sending them to America? The answer is no. Because if they're being manufactured in this country, it takes on the status of that country. Does it have to be Bishul Yisrael, have to be kosher or not? And then you make it that way, and then wherever it's made would be affected by that. But just interesting. It keeps halakhic authorities busy, these kind of things. And they're busy anyway, but these are things that you have to grapple with. Okay, any other questions? No? You know the joke about Ross Perot, remember? You know, did I ever tell you the joke? Maybe before your time, but when I was a teenager. It's hilarious. There was this Texas billionaire named Ross Perot. He was running for president. I don't remember who he was running against. I don't remember. I think George Bush or something. And he had a small face and huge ears. So he would say, "If anybody has any questions, I'm all ears." It was hilarious. He would say it after every talk. We thought it was a great chuckle. Anyway, okay, halacha yud ches. In Bishul Nachri Michael Ashashayach Lechval Isser Bishul Akum. If a non-Jew cooks food, that has to be Bishul, that would be Bishul Akum. So not only would the food become not kosher, the example I gave you before about a brisket, right? Because then the food becomes not kosher if a non-Jew cooked it from beginning to end, but also the vessel used to cook the food also becomes affected by that, becomes tainted. Unless most of the food in it was edible raw. These are various, but generally speaking, if the food needed to be Bishul Yisrael in its majority, then you have a problem also on the vessel. Because the vessel gets an absorption of forbidden material. Even though the rabbis only forbade Bishul Akum because of concern of intermarriage, so what are you worried about? That there's going to be absorption inside the vessel. It's going to come to intermarriage. It's very far-fetched. What are we concerned about? So certainly I'm not worried about intermarriage with what's absorbed in the vessel. That's not something you don't even see. Since the food became asa because of Bishul Nachli, to a non-Jew cooking it, its laws become equal to all laws, all other laws of Jewish law with regard to the kashrut. And just like since the food became not kosher to eat, it also affects the vessel. You say it's treated the same way in all other Yisurim. There's a second opinion that argues and says no, the vessel does not become asur. After rinsing it, doesn't have to be kosher. Because the whole idea of hischatnus, of intermarriage, is not applicable when it comes to taste, and it's not a problem of Bishul Akum. But the net result in the poskim is to be stringent, like the first opinion that says it does make the vessel not kosher. But how you kasher the vessel, they were lenient. They said that you have to kasher the vessel. They're stringent in that regard, like that opinion. But saying in terms of how you kasher, we can be a bit more lenient. Even though you cannot kasher a vessel made out of earthenware that became not kosher. For example, you have an earthenware vessel that has basar b'chalav, you can't kasher it unless you put it back into the kiln. But when it comes to Bishul Akum, we would allow that to be kashered. You would be allowed to do hagala on it 3 times. A vessel that you cannot kasher because you're concerned you might break it in hot water. After waiting 24 hours from not using it, without kashering it, it would be allowed also because it's considered to be acceptable under the circumstances. All right. We have 2 minutes left, and we have one more halacha. I want to introduce this halacha, and then we'll go inside. There's a known principle in Jewish law that if you have a person who's unfortunately not well, a sick person, let's say you have an elderly person, even if they're healthy functioning, but they're elderly and they cannot take care of themselves, they need an aid. Halachically, they're in the status of a person who's not well. They could be functioning, but they're still not well because they cannot do everything themselves. So for such a person, it's permissible for them to have a food that would be Bishul Akum if there's no other choice. Obviously, it's not preferable if I can have, but let's say there's no other way and the only aid that's available for this person is the non-Jewish, wonderful aid. They help them, and they cannot turn on fires themselves. It's dangerous because they're not, they could cause a fire. How do you handle that? So what the Rabbanim would say, by the way, would be to light a 7-day candle. The Jew should light it, and the non-Jew should take that candle and light a fire from it. That's the answer we would give. But conceptually, okay, so what about if it's Shabbos? Then you cannot light Jewish fire then. What do you do? But they need to have hot food for their well-being. I don't know. They need chicken soup. Right? Chicken soup is a cure-all, right? You're allowed to have a non-Jew cook it for them. Even though a non-Jew is not allowed to have, a Jew is not allowed to eat foods. Is it Rabbanon? But a chayla is allowed to eat food that was cooked for them by a non-Jew on Shabbos. Kosher ingredients, of course. They make the brach ulam, but dafka b'Shabbos dafka on Shabbos they allow this because you have no choice, because the Jew cannot turn on the fire then. You're stuck. During the weekday they didn't permit this, which is why I said they tell you a Jew should light a 7-day candle, and then I guess through the camera system you can watch the non-Jew taking fire from Jewish fire. But now you have a question. Let's say it was Shabbos, and the non-Jew cooked permissibly for the Jew on Shabbos because he's a chayla. What's the status of the food after Shabbos, and what about the vessel itself? So that's the subject of great rabbinic debate. The stringent approach would be that even after Shabbos, even the chayla themselves cannot eat this food because now it's after Shabbos. A Jew could turn on the fire, so it's not in a permissible activity anymore because it's only permissible when you have under duress, when you have no other choice. Just giving you like a little bit of a perspective. Anyway, that concludes our subject of Bishul Akum, and that's what it is. Sorry. Next, we learn about Cholav Akum, which is Cholav Yisrael. We get into farming and the cows and all kinds of fun stuff like that. Anybody here from the new program, for the special program? Or you all like regulars?
I'm like the winter program.
You're on the winter program?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a program in my house today at 1:30. So I guess we'll see you a little bit later. My wife is gonna show everybody how to make sourdough.
Oh, wow.
I think so. Something to do with the kitchen. And then I'm supposed to speak about kashrus. So to figure out what I'm going to say, I don't know. I guess we'll figure it out. Anyway, okay. Have a good day and a good Shabbos. It's Thursday. How do I turn this off? Anybody know how to turn this off?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I just do this. No, exit. I don't know these things. I get scared by the technology. I gotta be careful. Whatever I